Welcome back from spring break, GW. Here are this week's headlines. The race to vaccinate the country has been ramping up. As of Thursday, 137 million doses have been administered. 27% of the population has received the first dose of the vaccine, and 15% are fully vaccinated. President Biden has asked states to open up vaccinations to all people over the age of 16 by May 1st. 6 states have already done so, and many have announced plans to do so in the coming weeks. The District of Columbia plans to open up vaccine appointments for everyone 16 and up beginning May 1st. Currently, DC residents over 65, adults with high-risk conditions, and essential workers such as teachers and medical workers are all eligible. GW has not announced whether a vaccine will be mandatory for students, but schools such as Rutgers University have already announced that they will require students to get the vaccine. 8 people were killed in shootings at 3 spas in Atlanta area on March 16th, and 10 more were killed in a shooting at a grocery store in Boulder on March 22nd. 6 of the victims in Atlanta were women of Asian descent, causing many to refer to the massacre as a hate crime, though it has not yet been officially classified as one. The suspect of the Atlanta shooting, 21-year-old Robert Long, cited his sexual addiction as a reason behind the shootings and has been charged with 8 counts of murder and 1 count of aggravated assault. In Boulder, 21-year-old Ahmad Al-Aliwi Alisa has been charged with 10 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder for the shooting at King Soopers grocery store. The 2 shootings, which are not related to each other, have refueled demands for stricter gun laws. Although some have questioned whether Biden would be successful in pursuing gun control at this time, his administration faces other legislative priorities. The president has called for legislative action anyway. Biden, who was a prominent supporter of gun control as a senator, and who played a role in the Obama administration's response to Sandy Hook, faces partisan opposition in Congress. DC statehood has become one of the most controversial topics in the past couple of years. Most recently, on March 22nd, there was a hearing in front of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform to further argue for a bill that would make the District of Columbia a state. With both Democrats and Republicans seeing this as a chance to advance their own agendas, the hearing proved to be defined by loyalty to party. On the Republican side, Congressman James Comer was one of the key individuals that strongly voiced his opposition towards DC statehood. On the Democrat side, DC Mayor Muriel Bowser and DC Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton sought to counteract these arguments and fight for their cause. Mayor Bowser reinforced how DC statehood is, at the end of the day, about universal suffrage, and the federal district's lack of rights is anti-democratic and un-American. Delegate Norton took a similar route. While debate will continue to happen in the next couple of months in order to pass the bill, the Democrats already face a challenge in the Senate, with Republicans threatening the use of the filibuster. President Biden's actions towards this contentious issue could eventually determine whether or not DC becomes the 51st state. For this week's Deep Dive, reporter Rohit Ramesh is covering the Israeli election.
Thank you, Willow. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of the Likud party and his right-wing coalition failed to reach a parliamentary majority in Israel's latest election, which was held this past Tuesday. According to the final results released by Israel's election commission, Netanyahu and his allies captured 52 seats, compared to the 57 held by his opponents. In order to form a government in Israel, a 61-seat majority must be won or formed by a coalition. This election was the 4th in 2 years of Israel, as the divided country continues to fail to elect a majority government. The election results have been viewed as a rebuke for Prime Minister Netanyahu, as Tuesday's vote had largely been seen as a referendum on his performance as Prime Minister and his leadership style. Netanyahu campaigned on his management of the country's, and I quote, successful coronavirus vaccination program and diplomatic agreements reached with 4 Arab countries. Nevertheless, his opponents campaigned on what they viewed as failures of Netanyahu's code management, as well as attacking him on various corruption charges he faces. Although both sides could still try to form a government by trying to reach across various parties across the political spectrum, this remains unlikely due to stark political divisions over various issues in Israel. What is more likely is that no government is able to be formed, and Israel heads to its 5th election in just 2 years. If one thing is for certain, it's the uncertainty Israel faces as it navigates through this political crisis. Now back to you, Willow.
Thank you, Rohit. This week, Biden held his first formal press conference since taking office, and he answered questions from reporters for about an hour. He remained calm, unaggressive, and stuck to mostly vague responses. The main points Biden made included calling Republican efforts to limit voting un-American, that U.S. troops would withdraw from Afghanistan within a year, that he expects to run for re-election in 2024 with Vice President Harris, and that he has no idea whether there will be a Republican Party at that time. Fact-checkers from multiple sources found that although Biden claimed that his administration has been sending back the vast majority of families who are coming, quote, to the U.S. border, in actuality, just 13% of families are being sent back. On responding to questions on gun control legislation, Biden made clear that it's not his top priority as he focuses on COVID relief. He also did not take a harsh stance on ending the filibuster. That's all for the headlines this week. For Capital Crossfire, I'm Willow Hasson.